they beat us in every phase of the game tonight or today, this afternoon, and it's pretty obvious. I mean, give them a lot of credit. But, offensively, defensively, and in particular special teams, they made the plays when they needed to. Neither one of us, I think could sustain much offensively, but they make one huge play, and we have some opportunities with the ball tipped in the air, and we just don't come down or make the play. And that makes it pretty even in some ways. And then I thought they dominated us special teams-wise. Their punt team flipped the field on every occasion, and then we had way too many penalties that really made it difficult on us offensively.
Any initial update on Tanner, what his situation?
No, I don't know. It doesn't look good for a little while. He couldn't grip the ball, so we'll have to make sure we find out what the deal is tomorrow and see how long that may last.
Luke, the offense was struggling even before Tanner got hurt. I know Iowa certainly has a very sound defense, but do you feel like your offense is still trying to find what its identity should be?
No, I don't think they're trying to find what their identity needs to be. I think that we're trying to find, how it fits in the people that we have as much as anything. But we got to do a better job. I told them in the locker room. I thought first and foremost they did a better job coaching than we did today. And I'm the first one, right? I mean, when you look at the whole field position battle and the things that you need to do to win a game like this, a rivalry game, that I can honestly tell you our guys respected the heck out of, prepared. I thought as good as we have this entire season. But when it comes down to it, we didn't get it done.
Luke, how would you evaluate how Braden Locke played today?
I don't know. We'll go back and watch. He's thrown in a really tough situation. It's not like you said before, it's not like we were moving the football and we didn't have anything really established, whether it was the run game or making some plays on the outside. It was a battle, hard fought, and he gets thrown into a situation like that makes it very, very difficult. And I thought they did a great job at pressuring and keeping us off balance. And I think we got to do a better job protection-wise to give our quarterbacks a better chance.
Luke, they did obviously a really good job defensively on third down, but were there some instances where your receivers didn't get to the sticks on their route, or is that just something you live with in this game?
I don't know. I mean, I think there's a few of those situations, which puts us in those tough calls there, and going for it. Kind of like I know everybody will ask about the first series of the game, and we go for it and get stopped, and had you known that it was going to be as tight as it was going to be, maybe you do things different. But the reality is, you kicking field goals are not going to win football games, and that's the difference in our game. Obviously, they got a safety and things like that, but they got the one big play that leads to a touchdown, and that's as much as anything as a difference in the game. If we find a way to get him down at the 10-yard line, whatever, who knows what happens? Like last week, but. I think there's a lot of things like that whether it's first down, third down, whatever those situations are, we got to figure it out.
Luke, when you said that you're still trying to find how your identity fits to your players, do you mean because of the injuries you've sustained, some of the things like that? Or
I think in some ways, I think the limitations we've had at the tight end position just because of injuries as well, and so I all those things fitting into what you're doing, and then I think that. Maybe they didn't recognize how stout this defense really was, and how much they can limit to you in a lot of things that you do. And so you give them a lot of credit. I mean, they lost 2 first-round draft picks from last year's defense, and, I don't know that they probably taken much of a step backwards, and so there's a lot of credit to be given to them, that forced us into the situations we had tonight, especially on third down.
Coach, did today feel like it was one of those days that, everything you did, as you continued to make some great plays and all of a sudden things fell apart, was it just, it seemed like you're running through the mud all you know?
Yeah, there was no flow of anything. It was really, we knew, things are hard to come by, but there was no flow of anything. If we did make a play, if we did make a first down, all of a sudden you look back at it and you're 2nd and 12. We think we moved the ball and we're going to play the battle of field position, and they punt the ball 65 yards, and you get a penalty on the play to put it back to the 6-yard line. We were fighting uphill in a lot of things all day, but you know what? You got to make some of your own breaks, and the breaks that were out there, we didn't end up capitalizing on, whether the ball was tipped in the air and things like that. And to me, that's where it's hard, but you come in there and it's like there's not a whole lot to say. Like, right, we got beaten every phase of the game. They out physicaled us, they outrushed us, it's just all those things. And I'm not saying that to the players, I'm saying that at myself, that they were better prepared, and I thought we did a great job all week.
Luke, obviously you're confident in Braden. That's why you wanted him here, and that's why you brought him as a transfer. But how do you envision maybe altering the offense to some of the skill set that he has versus what Tanner brings?
And we'll have to figure that out based on what the situation is with Tanner, and if it's going to be a longer situation, then we'll have to probably tailor a little bit, and then we'll have to create some competition as well. I think that's the great thing about having that room and having those guys, and so there's a lot of things we got to figure out. Like I said, it starts with where Tanner is and how long that might be to where we need to do a better job. Obviously, putting ourselves in some situations where third downs are much more manageable.
I don't know how much Braylon's injury had to do with this, but there was 2 straight series in the first half where it was all passes. Do you think you got away from the running game a little too much?
Yeah, maybe. I think that almost like we were lulled into some of those plays that we made throwing the football, and it looks like you got a chance to make some plays down the field, and then then you're sitting there with one tailback because Braylon's inside and they're checking him out, and so you're in a little bit of a tougher situation trying to figure out how this is going to play out as we continue to move forward, and sometimes that puts you in that situation where all of a sudden you look back and you've thrown the ball eight straight times, and I don't think that's good for any of us.
Coach, speaking about Braylon, I know this isn't the story of the game, but he did reach those 3,000 career rushing yards. What does it mean to work with a guy who's had a career like that?
He's a phenomenal player. He's a phenomenal kid. He's got so much more growth that he's going to be better and better and better. And he's one of those guys that we kind of came in at halftime and said, we're going to have to put a lot of things on your shoulders. And to be honest with you, I thought he ran as hard and as physical in that second half as I've ever seen him. And obviously it wasn't enough, and maybe we need to just flat out give it to him some more there in those situations. But to be honest with you, he's a guy that showed me a little something out there today.
Any further questions?
You mentioned the offensive line giving the quarterback a little more time. Do you think it was some of what Iowa was doing in terms of different pressures maybe they didn't expect, or was it just kind of winning some battles?
Yeah, I do think there was too many free runners. As like the safety, right? I don't know exactly what the protection was and what the situation was, but there's 2 free runners at the quarterback, and he's got nowhere to go. So it's easy to point a finger. It's easy to look at the quarterback and say throw it away, and he's in a situation where he's trying to make some plays, and we're down as it is. But I think that's where we've got to put the pressure on. If Braden's going to be in there, there's going to have to be a little bit more put upon the Bortz and the Jack Nelsons and those guys up front that have got a lot of experience. To take over for us a little more.
Last one.
Luke, you've been in this league a long time. I know there's a break in between, but you've seen Iowa play. They win games like this all the time. It's got to be frustrating, I'm sure, but is it somewhat amazing that they can just be like that and still win?
Yeah, I said it before. They asked about the quarterback, and I said, well, he does what the Iowa quarterbacks do and what they need to do. And what is that? It could be anything, right? It could be anything on any given day, and that's where I think that you ultimately can look at it. They got a great culture of what it is that they do. They lost their top player maybe on offense and Eric All there early on, but they didn't change exactly what they were going to do, and they stuck with it. And they knew they were playing well defensively, and they didn't have to put themselves in a lot of situations and take some chances. And that's where, as a whole, we've got to do a better job. We talk about complementary football, and if we could put them in some situations where we'd have made them have to make some plays on offense, I think we could, find ways to create some more things.